Someone at your church walks up to you after 6 weeks of announcements and says, "I didn't even know that was happening." You did everything right. You announced it from the stage, you put it on the website, you posted it on social, published it in the Bulletin, and this person, who you know was there on Sunday, still claims they had no idea. That sentence is the reason this video exists. And here's the first thing that I want to say. These things happen not because you're not trying hard enough. It is not your team's fault. Church communications runs on one of two things, a system or chaos. And almost no church has a system. Almost every church has the chaos. I went to school to be a pastor, degree in theology and youth ministry. You think we had a class on this? No. And here's why this matters so much. Communications is not a department in your church. It is the thing that every department runs on. You preach sermons, that's communications. You promote events, that's communications. You invite people to small groups. You follow up with first-time visitors. You cast vision for giving. You recruit volunteers. Every single thing your church does to move people from passive spectator to active participant, from far from God to walking with Jesus, comes down to one question: can you communicate? If the answer is not well, it doesn't just hurt your announcements. It hurts your discipleship, your outreach, your growth, your mission. So that's what this video is, a complete system. 7 building blocks that eliminate the chaos in any church, whether you are 50 people or 5,000. Walk through them in order, install them, and the "I didn't even know that was happening" goes away. Now, one quick thing before we start. Everything I'm about to teach you works better if you know where your church actually is right now. And we call this the Church Chaos Score. 0 to 100. Low score equals healthy comms. High score, chaos is running the show. Now, here's how to get the score. You paste in your church website and 3 YouTube links to full recent services. That's it. Most churches already have services up on YouTube, so the whole submission takes about 3 minutes. If you don't have full services on YouTube, no worries. You can also send us the audio files of full services, and from there, we will analyze every announcement and every word said from stage, looking at 38 different signals, and then send you your score and a breakdown of where you stand. ChurchChaos.com. Link is in the description. QR code on the screen. Get your church's chaos score. Submit it now. You can keep watching. You can do both. And knowing your score will make every step of this video more useful. Okay, let's get into it. So, in the 7 building blocks, the first 3 are the foundation. Without these, nothing else works. With them, everything else becomes a lot easier. Let's start with building block number 1. Assign levels to every ministry. Think about it this way. Even an average-sized church of about 85 people can easily have 12 or more distinct ministries or departments. Youth, kids, women's, men's, small groups, outreach, worship, prayer, missions, hospitality. We could go on. And here's the part that churches mess up. Not everything deserves the same promotion. Now, maybe that sounds obvious to you. The thing is, this principle almost always gets ignored in church. And that's why building block number 1 is to assign levels to every ministry and event in your church. A level 1, 2, 3, or 4. And your level then determines your promotional playbook. Not the volume of the ministry leader's voice, not who has the best relationship with the pastor, not who asks first, the level. Now here's how the 4 levels work. Level 1, church-wide events that affect 80% or more of your congregation, plus bridge events designed to reach new people. Think Easter, Christmas, Fall Festival, VBS, a major service time change. These are the events that get the most resources, the most visibility, and the most promotional bandwidth across every channel that your church has. But, and this is critical, you need to protect this level and actually enforce the boundaries. What do I mean? Well, just because an event or ministry is open to the whole church does not mean it belongs in level 1. If the park cleanup only ever draws 20 people, it's not a level 1 event, even if it technically could attract anyone. Level 2, core next steps. These are the critical opportunities that ideally every person in your church engages in at some point. Volunteering, giving, baptism, small groups, your intro class, whether you call it growth track, next step, something else, first impressions, and the new visitor connection. These aren't one-time events, they're ongoing rhythms, and they form the backbone of discipleship in church, which is why they get their own level. Level 3, next generation, kids, youth, young adults. Now, you might be wondering why this gets its own level. It's not based on attendance numbers or giving volume. It's based on what Next Gen uniquely brings to a church. Research from the Fuller Institute's Growing Young Project found that, quote, churches that make young people feel at home experience growth across all generations, not just among young people, all generations. Next Gen is the only catalyst that has been proven to do this. They are a multiplier, and for that reason, they get their own level in comms. Finally, level 4, individual ministries, departments, groups, and events. Men's ministry, women's ministry, missions, prayer ministry, the running club, small group, the couple's date night, the food bank fundraiser. These are valuable. They matter, but they cannot take precedent over the other levels. Priorities have to exist. Why? Well, because chaos reigns when you treat level 1 events like level 4 and vice versa. Now, how do you know that this building block is installed in your church? When no promotion gets planned without knowing its level first. When in meetings you hear things like, oh, that's a level 4, because it's become a part of the vocabulary in your church. Not as a way to dismiss anyone, but as a way to direct them to the right promotional playbook, which we'll get to. But first, on to building block number 2, publish policy. Now that you know what you have and where it sits, you need rules that everyone in your church can agree on, shared language. Because here's what happens without policy that's actually written down. Every promotional decision becomes personal. The pastor says no to a ministry leader and it hurts a relationship. Someone else says yes to avoid conflict, and the announcement list grows when it shouldn't have. Decisions get made based on who asks the loudest or most convincingly, not what actually matters most to the mission of the church. And the person managing communications, you're stuck in this unwinnable position, responsible for everything, empowered to decide nothing. Policy fixes this. And when the policy makes the decision, no one has to be the bad guy or gal. So here are the 6 rules of church communications policy. These are the rules I recommend every church adopt. You can customize the language, but the principles are universal. Rule number 1, awareness is not interest. The goal of any communication is not to inform. Don't miss that, okay? The goal is not to inform someone. It's to compel someone toward a next step, action, not awareness. If your announcement just tells people about something, but doesn't motivate them to actually do something, that's just noise. Rule number 2, Sunday is not your savior. A stage announcement will not magically solve low attendance or engagement. And until this belief is dismantled in your church, you will struggle to install the solutions that actually work. And in my experience, this tends to be the hardest belief to break, because for decades, churches have operated as though a stage announcement is the only promotional tool. But it's not, especially today. It's one tool. We'll talk about the others briefly and the ones that specifically make sense for each level of event. Rule number 3, the more you announce, the less they listen. Okay, what does this one mean? If you do 7 announcements on a Sunday morning, the response from all 7 combined will almost certainly be less than if you did just 3. When everything is important, nothing is important. And the rule I like to recommend here is 3 or fewer announcements from the stage each service. That is the standard. Rule number 4, inspiration over information. Facts and details do not move people. Stories do. And this is not opinion, it's brain science. A study published in the National Library of Medicine concluded that stories, and I'm quoting, have the power to affect our attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors. This is also biblical. No less than 35% of Jesus' teachings in the Synoptic Gospels used story. If story was good enough for Jesus and sharing about the kingdom of God, it's good enough for our church announcements and sharing about the work of the church. And we'll talk about exactly how to do this practically in building block 6. Rule 5, one destination for every promo. Do not scatter your next steps across multiple channels. Call the church, email the leader, talk to the pastor, download the app, check the bulletin. 5 different directions, 0 clarity. Send every promo to one consistent destination. Every time, the same one. And we'll build that destination in building block 7. Rule number 6 in our policy, values dictate voice. How you communicate matters just as much as what you communicate. I always say the language you use becomes the culture you build. What this means is that the words you choose are not incidental. The power of the tongue is a biblical principle. That's not just reserved for interpersonal relationships, but the church that you're building as well. Practically speaking, your voice should be anchored in your church's core values and DNA, not whatever the person on stage feels like saying that morning. So for example, if your church values warmth and hospitality, your communications should sound warm and hospitable across every channel all the time. And altogether, these are the 6 rules for church communications. Now, here's how to make this stick. Install this policy in your church along with the ministry levels for each event and department. Not in someone's head, in writing. Circulate it. Make sure every ministry leader in your church has seen it. This is your shared language. So when someone asks, hey, why didn't my event get announced from stage? You don't have to say, because I said so, you can say, because it's a level 4 event and our policy directs level 4 promotions through a different playbook. And again, what those playbooks look like are coming soon in this video. But now it's the policy making the decision, not you. And let me give you a model to follow here, because you don't have to be a jerk about this. Christ Community Church enforces firm policy, but they do it with good humor. So for example, their comms team does not accept project requests via, and I'm quoting their policy now, carrier pigeons, smoke signals, or hallway conversations. So it's firm, but it's fun. And that's what makes the policy work, because the best policies are the ones that people actually follow, and people tend to follow policies that don't make them feel small. All right, that's building block 1 and building block 2, levels and policy, the organizational backbone. Now, let's get ahead of this. Here is the tension that is going to surface as soon as you install these first 2, and you need to be ready for it, okay? Building block number 3, give each ministry a home. As soon as you install levels and policy, your level 4 ministry leaders are going to feel something. They'll understand the system intellectually. They'll maybe even agree with it in principle, but they're not going to love it. Almost certainly. Why? Because they'll feel like their ministry's value and access just got downgraded. And honestly, they're right to feel that way, because without an alternative, every ministry depends on Sunday announcements for visibility. We need a fix. And that fix is to give every ministry its own home, its own real estate on your church's website. Not a page, okay? That's not enough. A space they can control, where they can publish updates, promote events, share stories, and connect directly with the church and the people in their ministry individually, without coming to you every single week pleading for a stage announcement. Because when every ministry has somewhere to send people, the pressure on stage time and announcements begins to drop. So here's how this works practically. I said you don't want to just give each ministry a page, right? So what are we giving them? Well, I want you to think about how you follow accounts on social media. You don't follow every account, right? You follow the ones that matter to you. And when they post, it shows up in your feed. You opted in, you chose to see it. Functionally, that is how a post collection is meant to work on your church's website. Each ministry gets one. It works just like a profile page on social, except it lives on your church's website. So it's real estate that your ministry leaders own. People can subscribe. The ministry posts updates. Subscribers get notified when something new drops. Same mechanics as social, but instead of fighting an algorithm to reach the people who follow you, you actually get to reach them. Outreach gets a post collection. Women's ministry gets a post collection. Men's ministry gets one. Youth gets one. Every ministry can have its own home, its own audience, and its own publishing channel. Why does this work? A few reasons. First, it gives each ministry autonomy, their own home, their own messaging platform, their own audience access. They're not dependent on the main stage anymore. They have something that belongs to them. Now, does that mean that level 4 ministries have zero access to church-wide promotions like stage announcements? No. Critically, we're not relegating level 4 ministries to just the website, shoving them in the back corner. Not at all. We'll get there. But this is our foundation. We need these 3 building blocks first. Assign levels to every ministry, publish the policy, and give each ministry a home. Post collections are the unlock for making this work, because we're not just trying to take stuff away from ministries. We want to give them something that actually works and demystify their false belief that a stage announcement will save everything. Remember, Sunday is not your savior. Now, quick acknowledgement before we keep going. If you're thinking at all, okay, this makes sense. This will take some work to set up. You're right. And we'll come back to that at the end. But for now, just stay with me. See the whole system, and then we'll talk about how to actually install it without you going crazy in the process. Right now, we're 3 building blocks down, 4 to go, okay? Building blocks 4 through 7. These are what make the system go week after week, month after month, without you having to reinvent the wheel all the time, which is the secret here. Yes, implementing a new system will require some effort on the front end, but once it's installed, you recover so much of your precious time, energy, and sanity. It begins with building block 4, supply, promotions, playbooks. Once your church has levels, policy, and a home for every ministry, you need to actually promote things. This is where churches go wrong. Not because they're not trying, but without a system, you're always reacting, always troubleshooting symptoms, never addressing root causes. A promotions playbook removes the guesswork so that when a level 1 event is coming up, everyone already knows the playbook, what channels, what timing, what to say. When a ministry asks, how will my event be promoted? You hand them the playbook for their level. No debate, no negotiation. And inside of every playbook are 3 types of promotions you need to know. First up, Sprinkle promotions. In a sprinkle promo, you lead with something valuable, a story, a teaching moment, an inspiring update, something humorous or entertaining, and sprinkle the promotion at the end. The great thing about sprinkle promos, you can use them as often as you want, daily even. Next, sprint promotions. These are reserved for level 1 events only, all right? 2 to 4 times per year maximum, and this is the urgency phase that comes at the end of a campaign. Every channel, every day, promo for 1 week only. Easter gets one, Christmas gets one, maybe your fall outreach, but that's it. Use sprint promos too often, and people will tune you out permanently. And that's why they're called sprints, right? You can't sprint forever. And then finally, smuggle promotions. These are the clever ones. A level 4 event, say the park cleanup, does not qualify for a stage announcement. But volunteering, that's level 2, a core next step, does. So a smuggle promo looks like this. You want to do a stage announcement about volunteering, and you decide to use the park cleanup as your example. And one way you can serve our community this month is our park cleanup. Here's how one family got involved last year. The promotion is for volunteering. The example is the park cleanup. So level 2 cosigns for level 4. Now, here's what a playbook actually looks like in practice. For a level 1 event like Christmas, the playbook starts 8 weeks out. It starts with an awareness phase and then transitions into an interest phase. In both of these phases, you're heavy on the sprinkle promos. In the final week, the 7-day countdown before the event, that's when we enter the sprint promotion phase and we go all out. There's a different playbook for each of the levels 2, 3, and 4. Rather than walk through all 4 on camera, here's the deal. When you receive your Church Chaos score at churchchaos.com, you'll be able to opt into a free communications makeover where you can get all 4 playbooks for free. Easy. On to building block 5, create the weekly bulletin. Now, this is not the version of the bulletin that you're thinking about from your childhood if you're around my age. What we want, though, is the essence of what made the bulletin useful, but translated and upgraded for the communication era we live in now. Said differently, what was the purpose of the bulletin? It was the backstop, the record of truth, the exhaustive list of everything happening at your church each week, and it ties the entire system together. How so? Well, here's the tension this building block solves. Level 4 ministries deserve visibility, but they don't always belong in weekly announcements from the stage. Without a solution, you're stuck choosing between 2 bad options. Option 1, give them announcement time, and announcements start to drag, the congregation tunes out, and the system breaks. Option 2, say no, and frustrate the ministry leader. The weekly bulletin is option 3, and it's the one that actually works. Here's how. The weekly bulletin is hosted as a post collection on your website. Each new weekly edition breaks down every church event day by day. What's happening, where, when, exhaustively, how to get involved. Featured sections with full-width visuals for events that need emphasis, and an upcoming section at the bottom for future events not happening this week, but worth knowing about. Every item links out to the relevant ministry's post or event page. The bulletin gets in front of people 3 ways. First, a permanent link in what we call the launcher. This is a small widget that lives on every page of your church's website and surfaces your most important next steps. This is a free widget that we created and support. More than 17,000 churches use it, and I'd recommend dedicating a permanent action in your launcher to the bulletin, maybe even putting it at the top. You don't have to use our software if you have something similar on your site. The principle is what matters. One consistent place on your website where the bulletin always lives. Second, a pre-service slide with a QR code that runs every Sunday before service begins. People walk in, they see the slide, they scan the code, and now they've got the full rundown. And then third, sent weekly via email to every subscriber on the church's email list. Why does this matter? Because now, every event in your church, even the men's breakfast, even the park cleanup, even the Saturday morning running club gets surfaced in the bulletin. And the bulletin goes to the entire church. So even though the men's breakfast maybe didn't get a stage announcement every week, it does still get church-wide visibility every week. Through the bulletin, through the pre-service slide, through the email. The system works for everyone, every level, every ministry. And here's how you know this building block is working. Anyone, staff, volunteer, or congregation member can answer the question, what's happening at church this week, without calling the church office. That's the test. When your bulletin becomes the default answer to that question, you have installed it fully and correctly. Which brings up building block number 6, commit to the church announcements formula. This is the single most important habit change that you'll make. It's really simple. One story plus one next step. That's it. Every announcement from stage follows this formula. One story to inspire, one next step to act. Not a 5-minute logistics dump, not a list of dates and times and locations and what to bring. One story, one next step. Why story? Because storytelling is the only type of communication that actually forces the human brain to focus and pay attention. We spend up to a third of our waking hours in a daydreaming state. We're on autopilot. And story is the thing that snaps us out of it. When you hear a story, a real human story, your brain locks in. Your attention narrows. You start listening. And this is biblical. Back to Robert Stein's research showing that no less than 35% of Jesus' teachings in the Synoptic Gospels used story, parables, illustrations, narratives that made abstract truth concrete and personal. If story was good enough for Jesus, it should be good enough for our church communications. Now, here's what this looks like practically. Let's say you are promoting baptism the old way. Baptisms are coming up on July 19th. If you'd like to be baptized, go to our website and fill out the form. The deadline is July 15th. It's information. It's accurate. It's going to inspire and motivate almost nobody. Why? Because awareness is not interest. Okay? The new way, focus on a story about baptism. Here's me doing that from stage.
All right, so baptism, it's one of the most important moments in the life of every follower of Christ. And, it's something that almost every church celebrates in one way or another. When I was a kid, I went to this really small church out in the country, just about 30 people. We did church pretty differently then. Worship was just one acoustic guitar, and then we would all sing along. We used overhead projectors. Who remembers the overhead projector? Somebody, right? The chorus is coming, so you got to take the sheet off, put the other sheet on. It's a whole big thing. And we did baptism there. And the way that we did it is that one part of the baptism was that if you were being baptized, you had to go up and in front of the church explain why you were doing it, why it was important to you. So I got baptized around the age of 10, and the idea of going in front of the church and proclaiming something like that was a pretty terrifying possibility. And so to prepare myself, I got a sheet of paper, and I wrote down what I was going to say, right? I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm just going to read it, and I'm going to memorize it easy. So I get up to this, old rickety pulpit in a really small chapel, and I can barely see over the top. I'm so short. That hasn't changed really, but, I can barely see over the top, and I start reading, and I'm like, I've decided to give my life to Jesus. Sounds cute, right? No, it was horrifying, I can assure you, as a kid. And so I vowed then and there. I said, you know what? I'm going to get this moment over with, but I vow to never serve in a church where I have the responsibility of talking live from a stage to a large group of people. I did not succeed. Anyway, that's my baptism experience. We're not going to do things entirely like that here at Central. For this baptism experience, you don't have to come up in front of everyone and share, your reason for doing it, but it doesn't make it any less celebratory. That moment when I was 10, I still remember that distinctly. My family was there. It was this amazing moment in my journey with Jesus, and we want to celebrate that same moment with you.
The logistics, the dates, the deadlines, the what to bring, all of that lives on the website, on the post, in the bulletin. The stage is not for logistics. The stage is for inspiration, because inspiration is what moves people to act. Information is what helps them follow through after they've already decided to act. So you can't put inspiration first, it's got to come after. Now, as previously mentioned, here's the rule for services: 3 or fewer announcements from stage. And for us, only levels 1, 2, and 3 have access to stage announcements in our playbooks. That's it. Protect this platform, because what happens when you do 5, 6, or more announcements on a Sunday morning? I call this the announcement avalanche. You sit down, someone gets on stage, maybe they have a piece of paper in their hand, they start running through the list. Announcement 1, all right, you're tracking. Announcement 2, still with you. Announcement 3, sure. 4, 5, 6, you've checked out. You don't even remember now what the second announcement was about. When everything is emphasized, nothing feels important. Response rates go down, not up. The more you announce, the less they listen. And if your announcement time stretches to 10 or 15 minutes, you're not just losing attention for the promos, you're degrading the quality of the entire service experience. Now, there's one more piece to the building block that's just as important as the formula itself: the next step script that gets used every single time for every announcement every week. Here's a formula you can use. Head to your website or scan the QR code on the back of the blue card that says Connect. Feel free to augment, adjust, but once you've landed on something, stick to the same script. Every promo, every week, same words, same destination, every single time. Why? Because the language you use becomes the culture you build. And through simple repetition, week after week, month after month, your congregation will learn exactly where to go to find information and take their next steps. Always, without being reminded, without being spoon-fed, without ever having to ask, where do I go? because they already know. You trained them. Finally, building block number 7. Launch your central hub. This is the destination, the one place every single promo in your church points to. This is where the next step script sends people. This is the thing your congregation gets trained on. This is the final building block. Right now, your church likely sends people to a few different places, right? The app for one thing, the website for another, a Google form for this, a sign-up sheet for that, talk to the pastor for something else, fill out the next steps card in the seat back, go to the foyer table, register on the website, email the prayer team, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 different destinations. No consistency. The central hub has 3 rules, okay? All 3 are required. Miss one, the whole thing falls apart. Number 1, it has to be available 24/7. Sunday service, it's 1 hour out of 168 in your week. Someone sitting on their couch Tuesday night, inspired by a sprinkle promotion for small groups that they just saw on social, they need to be able to take that step right then. Not when the office reopens, not when they show up next to church, right then. 2, it has to work on every device. Phone, tablet, laptop, desktop. No app downloads required. The moment you require a download, you've added a friction point that most people will never cross. 3, it has to capture, store, and distribute information. Sign-ups, registrations, prayer requests, contact forms, RSVPs, whatever tool you use, those 3 things are the bar. Now, here's the psychology behind why consolidation like this actually works. And it's backed by research, not just intuition. The famous JAM study, Iyengar and Lepper, shoppers at a grocery store, were presented with a display of jam. One group saw 24 jams, another saw 6. The group that saw 24 drew more people to the table, more browsing. But the group that just saw 6, they were 10 times more likely to actually buy the jam. 10 times. More options, less action. Whirlpool tested emails with multiple links versus just one. The single link email generated 42% more clicks. Neil Patel, famous marketer, found that reducing form fields just from 4 to 3 boosted conversions by 26%. Imagescape found that reducing their form fields from 11 to 3 produced a 160% increase in submissions. The principle is clear, it's universal. Fewer options lead to more action. And simply by consolidating every connection point in your church into a single destination, you will see an increase in next steps and engagement. You don't need to make things more complicated, you need to make them simpler. What about proof in churches? Well, Forefront Church installed a central hub and watched their digital connections go from 15% of Sunday attendees to 31%. Small group engagement went from 42% to 74%. Their fall outreach attendance went from 400 to 900 people. Here's what I want you to understand. The most important thing about the central hub is not the technology. It's not the website, it's not the tool. It's the language. Establish your next step script. Say it every single time. And over months, not days, not weeks, over months, and inevitably, years, you build a culture where your congregation knows exactly where to go without being asked, without being reminded, without ever having to say those words that started off this whole video. I didn't even know that event was happening. And that's the system. 7 building blocks: levels, policy, a home for every ministry, promotional playbooks, the weekly bulletin, the church announcements formula, and your central hub. Install them in order, enforce them with vigilance, and the chaos goes away, I promise. With that being said, here's the truth. It's easy to watch this video, agree with the methodology, and never install it. Why? Because the upfront work is real. So here's the offer that I'll make to you and your church. My team will build it for you, for free. The levels, the policy, the post collections for every ministry, the promotions playbooks, your weekly bulletin, your central hub, all 7 building blocks, a free communications makeover. We did over 1,000 of these last year. We'd love to do one for your church. The way to start is to get your chaos score. churchchaos.com. Next steps will follow. You can learn more about the free communications makeover and see if it's a good fit. Until then, thank you for your time, attention, and trust. We'll talk to you soon.